So thank you very much for that very nice introduction, and thank you for your work. I'm presuming that we have simultaneous translation, so I'll just keep going. But thank you very much for what you're doing. It's so important. And I believe that culture can help, more than help. Sometimes culture is the only thing we can do to help children and people in difficulties, in the sorts of difficulties that our modern world has created. So my name is Nigel, I'm from Scotland, and I've worked with children and families who've suffered from war in many parts of the world. Bosnia, Kosovo, Chechnya, Lebanon, Israel and Palestine, Congo and Uganda, Southeast Asia, South America. We do not use medication, we use activities, the things that children and families normally do, in particular, the creative arts, also sometimes sport. How can these activities help? And I know that we have a professional audience, so forgive me for expressing it simply, but sometimes simple is good, and sometimes simple is profound. For today, I would like to show how we work with music. In children, the effects of war can show themselves in different ways, in the body, in the mind, and in relationships with other people, as if in a circle. So very much the body can be affected, the heart rate can be affected by trauma, our breathing, the chemistry of our body. Many, many things can be affected physically by trauma. The mind, we know, we can be affected by the experiences of war and the effects on our way of thinking and our relationships, and of course, our relationships with other people as well, our social relationships can be affected. And the things that are affected can also be the way of helping. We can help through the body, we can help through the mind, and we can help through society. And the creative arts are very good at doing that. Let's look at some biological concerns. Here's our paradigm that we work on, our biopsychosocial model. And if we look at the biological things in it, then we have things like endocrine and autonomic regulation. When children, in fact anybody, traumatized, have difficult experiences, very often the heart rate increases, the speed of the heart, as much as 5 or 6 beats a minute, which is a lot for a human being. Also, alongside that, our body chemistry gets dysregulated. Very often, for example, hormones like cortisol become dysregulated, so that sometimes to begin with, we have very high quantities, and then later too little. So many of these things that affect us directly, breathing and movement in children. You'll have noticed, all of you that work with traumatized children, how breathing can be disrupted. And you've noticed also how physical repertoires, movement is affected. The most frequent thing being hyperactivity. And anybody who works with children in Ukraine now knows about hyperactivity. And they also know about sluggishness, the opposite, when children don't want to move and are sluggish and requiring stimulation. So anyway, the creative arts are tremendously helpful with all of these things. Music is very interactive.
Чим може допомогти культура? Музика має суттєвий вплив на ендокринну, психологічний стан дитини. Це медична наука, яка довела цей вплив. Також були інші центри медичних дослідів. І так, почнемо з тіла. Досвід війни може ускладнити дітям навіть прості речі. Наприклад, плескання в ритмі може бути важким. Ось група дітей, багато з них сироти з Маріуполя, Запоріжжя.
We're performing a simple clapping game. Notice how some children cannot clap or do not want to. But these are the things that we can work on. And so on. And so you can see, as I've written in green, we're working on, in the body part of it, on chronobiology, on our body and time. We're working on movement, and we're working on synchronization, being together. All of the things are very, very important for children. And the point is, this is an optimistic story. We can look for the children that have difficulties, and we can work with them so that they can coordinate their bodies. Very simple, important things. War affects and conflict affects. It breaks time in the human body, but we can put it together again with art. Here's an example from Lebanon. I work with Syrian children who experienced terrible things in the last years in Syria, and all of whom have been profoundly traumatized. And so bombed out of their homes, they've lost many family members, and now live in flimsy tents on mountainsides. When I began working with the children, they were very hyperactive and could not concentrate. They could not clap in time, and they were very destructive. This is what happened 3 months later. The children are regulating their bodies through rhythm and music. So a simple exercise in music, also in joy, in coordination, and the children are mending themselves through this experience. You can see it. You can see the coordination. You can see the happiness. You can see them being comfortable in their bodies. Children who have experienced war can have extremes of behavior, varying from being hyperactive to being very withdrawn and sluggish. We can help children cope with these behaviors. We meet the children with music where they are and help them come to a more comfortable state of mind and body. Here, we're using a gentle song to come close to the children who are very withdrawn. Here we are using a simple song, which you know very well, and we're using it to help the children relax. We're helping to offer empathy to the children, feeling together with them. We are hopefully gaining their trust. We are creating an environment of safety, very important, and we are creating an environment of a family. The children have lost their families. We cannot replace their families, but we can replace some of the experiences of being in a family, which helps the children and they feel comfortable and safe with us. Here is on the physical system that we use, the biological effects. It's very important to know how profound the effect of music.
Який ефект музики може бути на тіло? Ось цей приклад. У мене є відеозапис того, хто слухає уривок музичний, і ви побачите, який ефект на нервову систему відбувається на ритм серця. Зверніть увагу на цей момент, коли тіло, особа, яка слухає музику, змінюється, коли музика розвивається.
This is the power of art, power of music in relation to the heart, to the autonomic nervous system. This is a very powerful tool, and as you can see, a very detailed one. It's not just that we can have a general effect. Microsecond by microsecond, we can change the behavior of the body. This is very, very helpful in the treatment of trauma. Psychobiological and psychological concerns. If we look here, we move around the circle to emotion, intersubjectivity, empathy, communication, and trust, creativity. These are crucial things in the way that we can help children and others. Our children often have problems with their emotions and with the communication, their feelings to other people. We work on this with songs. Here, you see children composing a song, performing it during an air raid alarm. Then you'll see a group of young professional musicians, I hope, performing the song. Is the children creating the song?
Śpiewamy всі разом. Великий барабан, великий барабан, який барабан, який барабан, який барабани, які барабани. Великий барабан, важкий барабан.
So on. The children composed the music and the words, as you can hear, Veliki Baraban. And here we're dealing with emotion, we're dealing with creativity, and very important, we're dealing also with belief in oneself, self-respect, and being sure of oneself. All of these things, creativity helps us to achieve. Unfortunately, this session got interrupted by an air alarm, as often happens, and so, but we carry on singing.
Veliki baraban, veliki baraban, yaki baraban, yaki baraban, veliki baraban, veliki baraban, yaki baraban, yaki baraban, veliki baraban, veliki baraban, yaki baraban, yaki baraban. Baraban, veliki baraban, yaki baraban, yaki baraban. La 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 la. Veliki baraban, veliki baraban.
And so on. And we always keep singing whenever there are alarms. That was particular alarm, I remember, was frightening for the children because there was also a power cut. So it was even more important we kept singing. Now, I'm not sure this next film is going to work, but very often we take the songs composed by children and we invite professional musicians to make versions of them. This is very important also for the children's self-respect, that they can hear that their own work is valued by others. And also it creates a very important continuum in the world of art. The world of art, of simple things and children creating songs is joined to the world of sophisticated musicians and actors and painters. It's joined together, it is not broken, and we use that. Anyway, let's hope this film works. Forgive me if it doesn't. I had some problems with it earlier, and it's going to give me problems now. Never mind, it's students from Kharkiv making a beautiful performance of Veliki Baraban, which the children really enjoyed, and were very impressed when it turned up on YouTube, their work. Finally, psychosocial, social, and biosocial concerns. There is so much we can do in the social. I mean, arts are social, and in particular music, theatre and dance are very social activities. They are ways in which people can join together in a safe way to do things. They're also activities that help regulate social behavior. When we're making music together or dancing together, if we're painting pictures together, if we're reading a play, there is a structure for us as human beings to be together in a safe and creative way. We're joining together to make things that are interesting and beautiful. And this can have a hugely important effect on human beings. I'm going to select just one for today example, because as I said, we can work on the whole of this circle. We work on safety, joy, self-belief, self-respect, self-confidence, identity. We work on socialization, social communication, social coordination, on synchronization, like you saw the film of Syrian refugee children, and so on. These social, very many things we can help with. But I'd like to take a particular example with adults this time, and it's an unusual film. It is a group of women who were abused, in some cases gang raped during the war in Bosnia. These abuses took place in the period 1992 to 1995. This film was made in 2014. There's been no justice and no punishment for those guilty. the women even have to see their abusers on social media. I would not normally film a session like this, and certainly not a first session, but the women wanted it to be filmed. They invited the cameras, not me. We are writing a song. The women create both the words and the music. The editor of the film misses out the detail of how the women compose the melody. I can perhaps describe a little of that later. But here are the opening words that the women create. Time, life, and I live in my days, time, life, and I, in different ways, with the hurt and the pain, with the strength we gain. Hear our voice and the words we want to sing. So I'll show you the session. It's all the women's own work and what they wanted to say. You'll see me just inviting them to create what they want to create. Sorry, we seem to have a problem with the film. Try escaping. Seems to have not be working. What a shame. Anyway, I can explain what happens. I'll go back to here. I'm not sure what's happened to this presentation. It was working. This film was working when I tried just before the session. Anyway, it's not doing. This session, the women created this rather beautiful song, the melody and the music. And their name of their organization in Bosnian is Naš glas, which you'll understand, our voice. And what was really important was that the women wanted to communicate. The world was not allowing them to communicate, it was ignoring them. And so we created the song, and then I proposed that we should make this song available to the public. And I managed to persuade the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra to perform it. And I asked the women how I should work on this. I would help them to make an orchestration. And should it be, the rock and roll ballad that we'd written, or should it be different? And they said it should be different. It should be like the composers we studied when we were young, like Bartók and Kodály, should be like that. So I helped them create a piece in that way. And I hope very much that this is going to work, because now is the recording. It seems to be an unlucky technology day, so forgive me if it doesn't. We're going to try and make it work. Here we go. Is it going to work?
Not the lies,
the words of the song at the end are, "Hear our voice." The good thing about that, that the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra played this in different places, and I believe that millions of people have heard this and heard their voice. So art is also a way of communicating. We can not only help people, their minds, their bodies, their social relations, we can tell people about what's happening. We can communicate, sometimes in the way that our media does not communicate very well. And the social media often only negatively communicates. We can, through art, communicate our feelings, who we are, what we need, and to a wider world. And so there's that too. So I do very much encourage you in this project. I believe that art is going to be very important in the recovery of Ukraine. I believe Ukraine can do this very well because it has not only excellent medical psychosocial services, but also has a wonderful arts world. It's a very creative world. So everything is there that could help Ukraine to grow again through this terrible time into a better time. And also, as we're working with Dr. Anika, with Ala, who's online today, with Kropivnitsky and other universities, we're working on a project of trauma-informed arts, where we're deliberately looking for the ways that artists can help society at large. And how do we prepare them to help? How do we give artists the information and the insights that they need to support people in this situation? And I'm very optimistic, and I believe about this, and I believe that this is an area where Ukraine can take a leading role internationally. It's very much needed. The world's children are in an epidemic of mental health problems, and it seems to me that trauma-informed arts is one of the ways that we can get through and help people, not just in Ukraine, but in a wider world. But thank you very much for your companionship on this journey. It's been a privilege to me to work with you, and I hope we can continue to work together in the same way. Thank you for listening to me.